Today I am going to be brutally rating every single defender in Rainbow Six Siege for Year 10 Season 3. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be starting off with D tier and we're going to be working our way through all the way up to S tier, leaving the best operators till last. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video, but let's just kick this off with D tier. Now, to be completely honest, I think for the defenders, there's not many operators that I'd consider bad. I think most of the defenders in Siege are actually useful in some way, but if I was to have to put one operator down in D tier, I think there's an argument here for Thorn. I think there might be an argument here for Tachanka, and I also think there might be an argument here for Solace. I think these are the worst three operators on defense right now, but I think if I had to just leave one of these three in here, the one I'd like to see get changed the most is definitely Thorn. I think her gadget is very underwhelming. It very rarely gets kills, and to be honest, it doesn't really put much pressure on the attacking team either. It is a trap that really needs to be revisited by Ubisoft in my opinion. And then moving on up to C tier, I think Tachanka and Solace are just very underwhelming operators right now. I think with a few buffs or a few tweaks, they could be good, so I don't think they need as much of a change. But I think Thorn, I really do think they need to revisit the gadget. Again, it could just be something simple like buffing the range of it or how quick it is to actually detonate. Something like that could be an easy way of just buffing it and making it great. But in my opinion, these are definitely the worst three operators. I think if we were now moving on up into C tier, is there any other operators that I think deserve to be in C tier? I think there is a case for maybe 2 or 3 more. I think Thunderbird may be down here, down in C tier. I think Alibi has a shout for C tier as well, and I also think Kavira has a shout for C tier. Now, I don't think all of these are going to stay in C tier. Out of these, I think the worst ones are definitely Solace, Tachanka, Thunderbird. I think there is an argument here for Kavira going up to B tier. If you get an interrogation off, that could be round changing, but I think Alibi also stays down in C tier because I think her gadget is just, again, very, very underwhelming. Once you've played the game just for a little bit, you kind of know when an Alibi is a fake one and when it isn't. I think in higher ranks, you very rarely see Alibi picked at all, and I think whenever anyone does actually play Alibi, they only really play her for the SMG. She very heavily relies on her loadout rather than being a good operator with a fully functioning gadget. But with C tier complete, then let's move on up into B tier. Other than Kavira, is there any other operators that I think deserve B tier? Yes, I think the B tier is probably going to be the most padded here out of all of them. Now, going through this list, I'm going to go one by one here. I think starting going from left to right, I don't think any of these are going to be in B tier. I think there is a shout for Castle maybe being in B tier. I think Clash is maybe around the B tier as well. I'm going to put Ella in there for now, Frost in there for now, Goyo maybe. I mean, he did lose the ACOG, but I still think there is an argument there for A tier. I think Jaeger and Wamai are both around the B tier right now. Maestro, I think, could also go up in B tier. Mozzie maybe as well. Now that I've realized, I actually missed out Oryx. I think Oryx could also go down in C tier. Another operator that I feel is very underwhelming and very rarely used to a good level. Pulse, no. Well, I guess there is kind of an argument for Pulse in B tier as well, but on the higher end of B tier. Rook, I think now is down in B tier as well. Sentry, I'm going to leave him for now. He could go in B tier, but I think for now we'll leave him there. Scopo, Smoke, I think all of these operators, other than Vigil maybe, have an argument for a higher tier. So now that we've got all the operators in here, let me go through why I think they deserve it. I mean, I think Castle in general, I think there is really good bomb sites for him, and there is some that are quite bad in my opinion. It really depends on what bomb site, how you're setting up, if you know how to set up. I think losing ACOG on Castle was a big, huge hit to him because there was multiple map setups that you could do with Castle that relied on him holding longer angles, and now he's no longer capable of doing that. Pulse, I mean, he did get the Mark II pistol, but I do still think he doesn't quite edge it up into A tier. Clash, I think, would probably go on the lower end of the tier, similar to Vigil. I think Vigil is kind of overrated in my opinion. Yes, he has the SMG-12. Yes, he has the Bosch G, which will still have ACOG, but other than his loadout, if we're talking about the operator themselves and the impact they have on a round, I don't think Vigil is that great. I think Kavira is probably the lowest and the closest to dropping down into C tier. I think even though Rook got a C4 and the Mark II Reaper pistol, I do still think it was a nerf overall for him. Jaeger, I think, is a little bit lower as well, probably even lower than Rook. I think Wamai is probably on the higher end, actually. I'd say probably better than Ella and Frost. Ella in general, in my opinion, is just kind of mid right now. Her gadget's in the spot where, yes, it can be useful If it goes off mid-fight, it's basically a free kill, but it's very niche. It very rarely goes off in a position where it's going to be good. It's basically more of a sound cue that also stuns. As for Frost, I think she got a major hit with losing ACOG. I think a lot of people loved using ACOG on her very low recoil SMG. Maestro is just kind of hit or miss again, kind of similar. Castle, you kind of need to know the bomb site, know how to set it up, and it only works on certain bomb sites, but I think that is how I'm going to leave B tier. So with B tier out of the way then, is there any operators that deserve A tier? Which ones are going to just miss out on S tier? Now the first operator going in there is going to be Denari. Now in my opinion, yes, he's going to be very strong, but I do still think there are very simple ways to counter him. I still see a lot of people putting like all of his traps on one doorway for an insta-kill trap, which yes, can be fun, but no one's ever actually going to fall for that. All you need to do is just use an explosive and then you've destroyed them all. I do think there is ways to counter Denari pretty effectively, so I am going to leave him up in A tier, but I do know for a fact there are some setups that are going to be a massive pain in the ass to deal with. Moving on then, we have Aruni. I also think she deserves A tier as well. I think she's probably the closest to jumping up to S tier. I think where she has a DMR on defense, she's still one of the operators that will have ACOG on defense in general. I think she's going to be really strong this season. I think a lot of people are going to be playing her for the ACOG and realize she's also just a good operator in general. I'm going to leave Azami for now. I think she might be an S tier operator. Not 100% convinced on Bandit. I think Doc's going to go in A tier, but probably on the lower end. I'm going to put Echo in there as well, but on the lower end. Goyo is going to go on the higher end of A tier. Even though he lost ACOG, I still think he's going to play a massive role in the game. His gadget just denies an area for such a long time. Just a 10 times better version of Tachanka, basically. Kaid, maybe S tier. I think Capcan goes on the low end of A tier. Yes, it's easily countered, especially if they have someone who can find electrified gadgets like an IQ, for example. And yes, it's pretty obvious where to find them, but if these traps go off, it's a sound cue, it deals damage, you can get free kills, and on top of that, it's just Capcan. Capcan has a great loadout as well. He can bring impacts, I believe, as well, so he can help with site setup and stuff like that. Not 100% sure if he still has C4, that might have gotten taken away from him, but I love playing Capcan. He's my most played defender, so I'm always going to be a little bit biased there. I think Malusi could be an A tier. Now I think about it, she could also be a high end of B tier operator. Mira is probably an A tier as well. Mute, there's an argument for S tier there. I think Sentry is going to go in A tier. Scopos, I think when played right, can be an A tier operator. Smoke could be an S tier operator. I'm going to put Tuberal in A. I'm going to put Valkyrie at the high end of A tier. I think she just misses out on S tier, and I'm also going to put Warden in A tier as well. Obviously, again, heavily relying on the SMG 12 and the loadout in general, but I do still think he is quite strong at the moment, which leaves all of these operators here. Now I think Azami is definitely S tier. Bandit, I'm still not convinced if Bandit is an S tier operator. Yes, if you Bandit trick, one of the most effective ways to stop hard breaches, but is he actually S tier? Still to this day, I don't know. I might put him high end of A tier. We'll just have a look. I think Fenrir is still an S tier operator. I think Kaid is again an S tier operator just for how effective he is at countering hard breaches, especially if you like hide them in places. That can be really effective. Mute, I think, is S tier. Legion, is Legion still S tier? I mean, he doesn't have his secondary shotgun anymore. I think he might have dropped down to A tier, you know. I do still think he's one of the best defenders, don't get me wrong. A tier is still a great tier to be in for a defender, and I think Smoke is probably an S tier as well. So looking at this, I think Bandit might be too high, so I'm going to drop him down. I don't think we should have too many people in S tier, and looking at this, I think this is my finished tier list. I think all of these operators here are definitely better than Denari. I think all the other operators in this A tier are all very, very good. I think Skopos maybe could drop down to a top end of B tier, but I'm going to leave them in A tier because I know when you play them well, she can be great. But with that being said, that has been it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.